Fellow countrymen, my heart is heavy as I witness the damage.
They said colonialism ended in 1957.
Africa must be free. Africa must be united.
Don't let us also forget that colonialism and imperialism may come to us yet in a different guise.
And they said Africa was free. They said independence had been achieved.
Not necessarily from Europe. We must alert ourselves to be able to recognize this when it rears its head and prepare ourselves to fight against it. This mid-20th century is Africa's. This decade, forward then to independence. To independence now. Tomorrow, the United States of Africa.
This is the largest boost of reserves that our membership is giving us a mandate to follow on. It would provide substantial liquidity boost to all our members, especially the most vulnerable.
But Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah warned us long before 99% of Africans understood what he meant that
A new kind of control was coming.
That colonialism and imperialism may come to us yet in a different guise.
A smart, silent, bloodless form of conquest, a method that was going to enslave nations without firing a single bullet.
Our enemies are many, and they stand ready to pounce upon and exploit our every weakness. They play upon our vanities and flatter us in every kind of way. They tell us that this particular person or that particular country has greater or more favorable potentialities than the other. They do not tell us that we should unite, that we are all as good as we are able to make ourselves once we are free.
But then you see, history has a strange way of repeating itself. Sometimes it even brings back the same spirit in a different body. In the year 1965, Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah warned Africa that a new kind of colonialism was coming. Not one with chains, not with guns, but with loans, aids, debt, and economic control.
To rededicate yourselves to the task of forming among the political parties in your respective countries a broad united front based upon one common fundamental aim and object, the speedy liberation of your territories. This decade is the decade of African independence. Forward then to independence now. Tomorrow, the United States of Africa.
When outsiders heard it, even his own people heard it, they laughed, they mocked him, and finally, they were influenced by outsiders to overthrow him. And eventually, they took him down. But you see, very funny enough, decades later, another African leader rose, speaking the same language, warning of the same traps, fighting for the same destiny. Muammar Gaddafi, a man many believe carried Nkrumah's unfinished mission, a leader who pushed for a United States of Africa, a single African currency backed by gold, a continental military force, and an African economic independence free from Western control. Interestingly, just like Kwame Nkrumah, he saw a storm coming. Just like Nkrumah, he stood against the machines. Just like Nkrumah, he paid the ultimate price. Today, as I speak to you, Africa owes over $1.1 trillion. Some nations now spend more on debt repayment than on education, healthcare, and developmental projects combined. And yet, we keep borrowing. You can never deny the fact that Africa is drowning in the very debt Kwame Nkrumah warned us about. On the other hand, you can also not deny the fact that foreign influence controls the very policies Gaddafi tried to free us from. Today, the warnings of both men are echoing louder than ever. And yet we Africans pretend not to hear. And I'm here to tell you that this wasn't an accident. And also Kwame Nkrumah predicted all these as Gaddafi came to re-echo and re-emphasize on the very things Kwame Nkrumah said before he was taken. The IMF influence, the World Bank traps, the Western manipulations, and even the rise of new global powers using Africa as a pawn before it happened. Kwame Nkrumah said all these things. And when we never heard, another man rose with the same spirit, re-echoed, re-emphasized, but still we turned a deaf ear to all these warnings. They died warning us, and we are living their prophecies. I did a little research, and here are my findings on Inside the Neo-Colonialism, the death trap you do not see. So hold on and please listen to this. This video is not with an intention to attack a personality or a group of people. It is for the purpose of education and criticizing an idea and an opinion. As this video is an analytical part of historical and geopolitical discussion, we seek to understand global power relations, not to create division. This is Inside Focus. And if this is the first time you're coming across my channel, don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button. Then like the video, share the video. Feel free to go to the comment section and let us know what you think about this very conversation. Also follow us on all other social media networks, all at Inside Studios Network. But this is Inside Focus. To understand this topic and this lesson very well, I need to take you back to 1965 when Dr. Kwame Nkrumah released a book called Neo-Colonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism. In 1965, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah released a book. The Western world hated it. They banned it from all academic institutions. CIA reports called it dangerous. World leaders dismissed it, called it a communist propaganda. And this book's title was Neo-Colonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism. So it was inside this amazing book that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah made a very profound prophetic statement about Africa, but we never saw the prophecy. He said, and I quote, "The essence of neo-colonialism is that the state which is subject to it is in theory independent, but in reality its economic system and thus its political policy is directed from outside." This was a statement made by Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. He described a system where foreign lending institutions control national budgets, multinational corporations dominate resources, foreign aid by political loyalty, and finally he sealed it by saying that the threat is not soldiers but economic dependence. So he called it the invincible empire. And he warned neo-colonialism is more dangerous than the old colonialism because it comes through invitation. You are invited and you feel loved, you feel belonged, you feel you are being cared for, not knowing you are being prepared to fall into a trap that you can never release yourself. And that trap is what we call the death trap. And this is how it is designed. It is designed in 4 simple steps. Let's start with the step 1. The step 1 is loan equals dependency. This is how it is. A country borrows money for a project. For example, let's say roads, bridges, power plants, dams, hospitals. All sounds good, right? But the loan always comes with conditions. These are some of the conditions. 4 conditions the loans may come with. First, you have to hire our companies to complete the project in your country for you. Secondly, you need to buy materials from us so as our companies can complete the project in your country for you. Thirdly, you need to use our consultants to help you in every step of the project. And finally, you need to follow our policy. So eventually, or let me say indirectly, the money is spent where you are taking the money before you even get to Africa. By the time you get to Africa, the money has already been spent. So what this simply means is that the money leaves Africa before it even arrives. What do I mean by that? It means that whilst you have started with the institutions to take the money for the project which you want to complete in your country, they gave you policies or they gave you conditions to follow. 1, hire our companies. 2, buy our materials. 3, use our consultants. So eventually, all these things will be deducted from the money little by little, little by little. By the time you finish the agreement, you will find out that you have no money. They didn't give you concrete money. They sent their engineers, they sent their companies, they sent their materials to complete the project for you. So the money still remains with them. So you will end up paying for money you did not receive physically. So at that point, you are owing them money you never received, because they paid their companies, they paid for material, they paid for consultancy and all other things. So you are now owing money that you did not receive. So that becomes a debt upon that country, and that debt upon that country makes the country weak. So the second step is debt equals weakness. The loans matures, the interest grows, the currency weakens, exports don't increase, and suddenly the country is paying more money back than they received. And this is the real trap. You are locked, you're crippled, you are broken, and you can never release yourself. You can never break loose, because that debt has become a load upon you, and whatever you do, that debt goes before you. The third stage of the debt trap is once the debt has made you weak, the weakness becomes control. So weakness is equal to control. So eventually, the money has grown, the interest has grown, and it is very difficult and impossible for the nation, the particular nation, to pay this loan. So once it is now difficult for them to pay for the loans, now what happens is that the said country or the said institution begin to impose austerity. Secondly, they privatize state assets. Thirdly, they cut subsidies. Fourth, they freeze wages. Fifth, they raise taxes. And sixth, they reduce public services. So I'm asking this question: whose plan is that? Not the people's, not the parliaments, not the presidents. It's the lender's plan. It's the lender's plan. It's the lender's idea. It is the lender's strategy. Once the debt you could not pay became a weakness, and that weakness became control in the step 3. In the step 4, that control has become ownership. What happens? Once the nation is weak, foreign corporations quietly take the mining rights, the oil fields, the ports, telecommunications, energy grids, national airlines, strategic lands, public utilities. And see, Kwame Nkrumah said all these, and he called this the corporate takeover of sovereignty. And he was right. Now go a little deeper with me. It is interesting to know that all that Kwame Nkrumah said, all the prophecies he gave, his predictions, are now happening today under our very eyes. Let me take you down to Ghana. Ghana's debt situation is so severe that the government spends more on interest payment than on health and infrastructure combined. IMF enters, policy changes, budget control influenced externally, exactly as Kwame Nkrumah warned us. Can't you see? So you might say this is just an example. Let me take you down to Zambia. Zambia borrowed heavily for infrastructure, couldn't repay. China allegedly take control of certain national assets. The economy collapsed under debt pressure. Kwame Nkrumah predicted. He said nations will lose their independence through economic instruments. Oh, so you are beginning to get surprised. Let me take you down to Kenya and you'll be surprised the more. Kenya's port of Mombasa, railway projects and government bonds became major concerns. Loans built massive infrastructure, but repayment nearly strangled the economy. Okay, so the giants of Africa, Nigeria, despite being Africa's oil giant, Nigeria spends billions annually servicing debt. So you may question, what about the oil revenues, mostly controlled by multinational corporations? Nkrumah warned. He said, those who control your resources control your future. So I have already given you 4 things that are happening under our very noses that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah predicted. Let me take you to the 5th. Francophone Africa. France still controls the currency, the CFA franc. Secondly, they still control foreign reserves. Thirdly, military presence. And then the 4th, economic policy. France still controls all these things in the Francophone part of Africa. And it would be funny to you if I told you that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah wrote, colonialism never dies, it simply shifts form. And the 6th thing that Kwame Nkrumah predicted that is happening under our noses is new players entering. He said that as long as Africa is weak or remains weak, new powers will arise to exploit it. You see, China and the Middle East have also entered into this game. China came, Middle Eastern Sovereign Fund followed, Turkey, India, Russia, all competing for African influence. Some bring development, some bring debt, but the result is the same. Eventually, it becomes all about dependence. So Kwame Nkrumah saw all this long before time, and he told Africans. So after all these revelations, the Western intelligence services labeled Dr. Kwame Nkrumah a threat, a radical, a Pan-African danger to Western interests. Why? Because he exposed their plan before they even executed it fully. The CIA document declassified decades later revealed Nkrumah's influence must be cut down to size.
This decade is the decade of African independence. Tomorrow, the United States of Africa.
Later, he was ousted in a coup, supported by the CIA.
56 years ago, the CIA sponsored the coup that ousted Dr. Kwame Nkrumah from office. This came to light after the release of US declassified documents in 1999. In reality, John Stockwell, a former agent stationed in Africa, had remarked about the CIA's involvement in Nkrumah's demise through utilizing local puppets. The overthrow of Kwame Nkrumah was orchestrated by Howard Bain, the head of the CIA station in Accra, according to some of his story. It was pretty obvious within the CIA. For the removal of Kwame, Howard Bain received a double promotion and the intelligence star.
Why? Because he pushed for an African central bank. He pushed for an African monetary fund. He pushed for a single African currency. He pushed for African unity to escape debt and resource control. And most importantly, he rejected foreign economic dependence. So what happened? He was overthrown in 1966 after the release, just a year after the release of the Neo-Colonialism, the last stage of Imperialism, that book. A year after the release, Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown. The coup was supported quietly by external powers. Ghana was immediately brought into the Western financial system. His Pan-African projects were dismantled. His warnings were all ignored by his own people, Ghana, and the entirety of Africa.
Fellow countrymen, my heart is heavy as I witness the damage which this clique of neo-colonialist conspirators are doing to our country. At the bidding of their overseas neo-colonialist masters, they are dismantling the work of 15 years. They are telling you that Ghana is bankrupt. They are telling you that our country is in debt to the extent of some 240 million pounds. What fools they are. How ignorant for them to think that you believe these stupid lies. Open your eyes and look around you. See for yourself. See the splendid new Tama Harbor. See the mighty water dam. See the fine roads which we have built under the leadership of the Convention People's Party and its government. See the schools, the colleges and the universities. See the clinics, hospitals, health centers and the facilities which we have created. See the factories which are already springing up. These are no debts. These are not debts. They are investments in our future as an independent nation. These are the physical guarantees of the bright new future which I have promised you and I have been working for. Together, we can put our Ghana firmly and squarely on its own feet. Together, we can create the things we need for ourselves instead of going cap in hand for charity handouts from foreign powers whose only wish is to exploit us and make us vassals to their interests. I know these are hard and trying days for you. I have never tried to conceal from you that real independence, that is to say economic independence, does not come without hard struggle and sacrifice. Unlike the cheats and deceivers, the liars and traitors who are now trying to lord it over you, I have never promised you any easy road. I have respected your good sense, your capacity for work, your pride in yourselves, and your sense of national dignity. Why do you think these traitors, these agents and lackeys of colonialism and of international intrigue to destroy the independence of Ghana, chose this moment to perform their dastardly act? I will tell you. Less than 1 month before they struck to destroy all our hard work, we had inaugurated the first electricity from the Volta Dam. Only 3 days before this treachery, we had signed a new agreement to irrigate the mighty Accra Plains. At last, we were on the threshold of a great new victory. We had in 1957 won our political independence after years of struggle. Now in 1966, we were at the threshold of winning our economic independence. The same people who tried to sabotage our winning of political independence 9 years ago have now struck to sabotage our economic independence and are systematically dismantling our socialist gains and achievements. Before the traitors and the rebellious National Liberation Council tried to usurp power during my absence from Ghana, Ghana was a haven to which the oppressed from all parts of Africa could come to carry on their struggle. It was a haven for freedom fighters, for independence and against colonialism. The name of Ghana was revered all over the African continent as a staunch friend of the oppressed. African brothers from South Africa, from Rhodesia, from Mozambique and Angola, from the so-called Portuguese Guinea and the Cape Verde Islands and other oppressed colonial areas were given hospitality amongst us. Do you think that this is something of which we needed to be ashamed? Not at all. On the contrary, it was something of which we should be justly proud. Haven't we proclaimed that the independence of Ghana is meaningless until it is linked up with the total liberation of Africa? Now, hundreds of these brave freedom fighters who came to our country trusting us to look after them and help them in their struggle against colonial oppression, and believing as we do that Africa and the struggle for freedom is indivisible, these brave men and women have been sent back, bag and baggage, by this traitorous clique to the countries from which they had fled to seek refuge, inspiration and protection in Ghana. Countrymen, a new phase of the African Revolution has been reached. This revolution must overcome and triumph over imperialism, racialism and neo-colonialism. It must finally usher in the total emancipation and the political unification of our continent. Africa must be free. Africa must be united.
And today, everything he predicted is happening exactly as he described it. So the question is, what could be the solution to all these, and what must Africa do now? Based on Nkrumah's warnings and today's reality. First, Africans must push the agenda towards the creation of the African-controlled financial institutions like African Monetary Fund, African Central Bank, African Investment Bank, so we don't borrow under conditions designed to weaken us. Secondly, Africa needs to practice transparent governance and anti-corruption system. Why? Because that becomes a trap whenever leaders misuse fund. Thirdly, Africans must push the agenda of African resource nationalism. Countries like Namibia, Tanzania are showing the way. We need to renegotiate contracts. We need to increase local ownership, and we need to control mineral exports. With all these being done, there will be a better way to solve our problems we are facing today. The fourth point is that Pan-African markets over foreign dependency. Trade with Africa, buy within Africa, sell within Africa. When we do this, it will maximize our potential profit and it will expand our strength financially. And finally, on the fifth point, technology plus manufacturing. A nation that cannot produce can never be free. It will be interesting to know that Africans eat what we do not produce and we produce what we do not eat. Wow, that's funny. And to this, Nkrumah said, the political kingdom is meaningless without economic independence. They told us independence was enough. but Nkrumah tried to give us freedom. They told us to borrow, but Nkrumah told us to build. They told us to trust the lenders, but Nkrumah warned us, if you depend on others for your development, you will never be free. Today, Africa is standing exactly where Nkrumah predicted, trapped between old and new empires, drowning in debts we did not create, and losing sovereignty we cannot afford to lose. So then, the question is, will we wake up, or will we become the generation that watched Africa slipped back into chains, silently, willingly, and without resistance? This was Inside Focus. If this message touched you, like the video, share it so others can wake up, and subscribe, because the next episode might be the one that finally opens your eyes. Africa must rise, and if Africa must rise, we must rise in wisdom.